Hi there, this is Solitary Ronan from Solitary Ronan Films, and welcome to another random review. Today we're going back to 1929 and Pandora's Box, directed by G.W. Pabst and starring Louise Brooks in her most iconic role. She was also in Diary of a Lost Girl by Pabst. This is Masters of Cinema number 280. Which, strangely enough, you get the film on a round disc, and you get a lovely booklet which has pictures and words. This is a controversial film at the time. And very much like, you can look at Citizen Kane and say it's almost a strange autobiography of Orson Welles' career, the wonder kid that at the end couldn't beg people to give him money to make films. And sadly, the character of Lulu that Louise Brooks plays in Pandora's Box, or Lulu's vagina, you could call it, is sadly an echo of Louise Brooks' own life, who kind of made this breakthrough film, went back to Hollywood. Hollywood couldn't really do anything with her. Sound came in. She just had kind of inconsequential parts. She ended up being a sex worker for a little while in the 40s and 50s, and then kind of died in obscurity, was an alcoholic. It's kind of fairly depressing, like the film, but of course that's why I do love the film. This is basically about why you shouldn't have anything to do with women who are very sexual, and why you shouldn't have anything to do with men, period. We basically just pick up with no backstory the character of Lulu, who is a sex worker, a dancer, and it's just her involvement with a rich man. She's his mistress, but then he decides to marry the quote-unquote normal woman, the sensible woman, and how Louise Brooks, Lulu's open sexuality in this time of debauchery impacts all the men around them and herself in a spiral of destruction. Yes, she is empowered in the sense she is open and she doesn't care, but there's always a price to be paid, especially in this time, but women in general who are kind of openly sexual, because men have this thing where they want to have fun with them and they want to have sex with those kind of women, but they would never marry that kind of woman, and have all eyes on their wife at all times. Now some men kind of like that and have a woman as a possession and something to show off and something to kind of they know that other men desire their wife, and that kind of gets them off. But I would say your average man doesn't want a woman who is like overtly sexual and flirts with everyone, and because there's a price to be paid, and women like that don't do well in films. And certainly Lulu's character doesn't do that well in films. Even the people that are her friends, or supposedly her friends, kind of betray her. In this time period in Germany, everybody was having sex with everybody. There's a portrayal of a gay woman who's obviously dressed like Marina Dietrich, so she must be gay. But again, she's no different than the men, as far as she just wants to have Lulu, and then just throw her away when she's finished. Again, this is about class as well. Lulu comes from a poorer background, and all she has is her looks, with that iconic haircut, and it's the rich people, men and women, who just use women like Lulu for fun, and then when it actually gets serious, or they actually have to make a choice, they always discard the woman that's openly sexual. The film is actually a low-key Jack the Ripper story, because they do jet set about, and there is a scene in London, or several scenes in London, during Jack the Ripper's time, and Lulu does get to meet Jack the Ripper, and it's actually one of the more interesting portrayals of Jack the Ripper in film, that nobody kind of talks about, but in some bizarre way, Pandora's Box is actually a kind of low-key Jack the Ripper film. It's absolutely beautiful, and this is the best Pabst film that I have seen. It is just wonderful, but it's a miracle that we've kind of got it in this beautiful print, because this was all done from duplicates. All the original prints were kind of lost. It's also groundbreaking, obviously, as far as the kind of sexuality and open sexuality of the film. Even though there is kind of, Pabst does have a couple of Benny Hill almost shots of Lulu's chest in close up, but some of the shots, the compositions, the stuff in London is absolutely beautiful. The use of mirrors, there's a really impressive kind of sculpture slash statue slash painting in the film that comes to great use. The use of intense close-ups is just phenomenal, and just this idea that no matter who gets close to Lulu, there is trouble ahead. Plus, it's also kind of revolutionary in the way Pabst uses the intertitles for the silent film, because as David Cairns points out in a visual essay on the disc, most intertitles are somebody talks, the intertitle comes up, and it cuts back to them finishing off what they were saying, whereas Pabst has somebody talk, the intertitles come up, and we see the reaction of the person to that, and that really speeds up the process, because sometimes with silent films it does kind of slow down the pacing when you have to get an intertitle, somebody talks an intertitle and somebody finishes talking. Pabst in this film just does away with that, so it's much it's kind of narrative flow isn't constantly being interrupted or slowed down. I mean, it's 133 minutes. It doesn't feel like 133 minutes. I mean, obviously, when Louise Brooks is on the screen, very much like Dietrich in the early days, when she's on the screen, that's where your eyeballs are. I mean, it's just a wonderful performance, just a complete star-making turn, even though she never became a star for one reason or another. Again, there's a wonderful extra on her life on the disc as well. It's just a beautiful film. Obviously, again, there's another extra on the release with Kat Ellinger, and she goes into the whole female roles and how all the men are basically swine, and open female sexuality does also attract men, but it also frightens men. And also Kat Ellinger does a far better job than me talking about that. But for me, as far as being a little bit of a nihilist, and not a believer in the human spirit and all that, it is a wonderful film, because again, it just goes darker and darker, and as kind of empowered and confident as Lulu is, there's only one way this is going to end. But I don't think it's a kind of a, oh, women don't be this, or don't be kind of as open about your sexuality and oozing sex, because it's not going to end well, and you deserve to have things not end well. I think it's just the natural way of the world. You can say that's patriarchy or whatever, but things generally don't end well for most of these kinds of characters in real life, as well as cinematic life. The extras, as I say, are fantastic. It's got a really good score. There's a commentary by Pamela Hutchinson, which is very good. The New Woman in the Jazz Age, The Dangerous Feminine in Pandora's Box, which is the appreciation by Kat Ellinger, which is excellent. Godless Beasts, which is a new video essay by David Cairns, which kind of focuses on the different kinds of men in the film, but at the end of the day, they're all kind of the same, from the rich guy that ends up having to marry her, but then that drives him mad, and his son, who's also in love with her, and then obviously Jack the Ripper, which is a really, as I say, interesting look at Jack the Ripper from a psychological point of view. And then Lulu in Wonderland, which is a new video essay by Fiona Watson, who looks at Louise Brooks and her sad life. Unfortunately, the kind of iconic role in Pandora's Box, but the kind of sad life that kind of echoed Lulu in her own life. And then Restoring Pandora's Box, which is an interview with Martin Kerber, which is fascinating, because like I say, it's a miracle that this is actually released, and I guess this is why it's taken so long to actually get a Blu-ray of it, because it is a famous film and an important film and an iconic film. So it's actually a miracle that we've got it in Blu-ray in the first place. But this is a wonderful film. Again, it's just shot so well. It rattles along. Again, partly because of that nice thing that Pabst does with Intertitles. And again, it is bleak AF, as the kids might say. But that's probably why I really like it. So please let me know if you've seen Pandora's Box or Lulu's Vagina. And please let me know what you think of it. And hopefully you'll join me again for more random reviews. This is Solitary Ronan from Solitary Ronan Films, saying farewell.